Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I hope you are doing well. For today, we are going to learn 8 common seam mostly used. We have the basic straight stitches, curved seam, cornered seam, top stitches, edge stitches, filled stitches, welt seams. These are the 8 common stitches mostly used. We start first of all with the basic straight sewing, which is for a beginner. I advise you to always pin like I said, but for me, I can use my pressure foot here to get my half an inch, but for a beginner you can use your ruler and measure half of an inch before you start with your. But me, I'm going to use the side of the pressure foot to measure my half. I advise you to pin it, so let me pin it. Always pin it horizontal. I'm not using too much pin because I can do without the pins. So we start. If you have a machine like mine, you always put your hand here, then you release your needle. Don't forget your needle always into the fabric like I said. Then you sew a little, about 2 steps. You go back with your reversed, and then you secure your stitches. Then you come back to 2.5 again. Then you sew. I'm using my pressure at the outside of it, pressure foot, to measure my half of an inch. I'm sewing. I'm not looking at my stitches. I'm concentrating on my pressure foot, because that is where I'm using to measure my half of an inch. So I stop to secure my stitches. Then look at that, always. Then I raise my pressure bar. If you are using the industrial machine, you can use your knee to raise it. So I pull it out. I cut my thread. I'm using a dark thread so you can see the stitches. So this is basically straight stitches. When you finish, you open it up. You see how neatly it is. If it's kind of folding or making a garden, it means you have problem with your tension. So you try to learn how to set your tension. So we put that one aside. Then we go in for, we are doing edge top stitches. Let's go in for top, the same procedure. You pin it. There's one thing about stitches, some people say it's too difficult. It's about practice. I don't know anybody in the world that has ever started sewing and is perfect. All you have to do is to practice. That is why we are doing that. The more practice you do, the more perfect you become. So the same procedure. First, your straight stitch, which I use the side of my pressure foot to gauge the half. Look at that, always my hand. Then I release my needle. It's very important. Sometimes if you don't release, the thread can easily come out from the needle, and you have to thread it, which is very, very annoying. You can't always be threading whenever you are going to sew. So take that notice. So I sew. I'm not looking at my stitches. I'm concentrating on my pressure foot because I'm using the side here to gauge my. Then I secure it. Always I cut. So we are doing top stitches. I take out my pins. Take out my pins. With top stitches, You open the fabric, then you push the allowance to one side of the fabric. You pressed. I use my thumb finger to do the pressing. And normally you can also use iron. You press it one side. It doesn't matter the right or left. One side. Then you turn it to the right side. Top stitches is always 6/8 of an inch. 6/8 of an inch. Or 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to use the pressure foots, both the side and the other side. Then I put the needle in between. Look at that, in between. Then I release my bar. I stitch a little. Then I go back to secure it. Then I'm doing 6/8 of an inch. So look at that. I'm using the inside pressure foot to gauge my stitch. You see? Look at my hands, both open to control the fabric. You see? Look at that. Always set. I pull it so easy like that. I cut my thread. And look at that. You can see how straight it is. Just 6 inch away from the seam. When you turn it at the back. Yes, that's where you see 2 stitches, and one is kind of waving some way. It's not that straight, but when you turn it at the right side, it's perfect. These stitches are normally found. It is used to enforcement of stitches, to make the stitches very strong. You can see super strong. So it's kind of enforcement. And they are normally used on uniforms or a jacket, something that's, let me say you have a uniform that you wear every day. You need something like this to secure the stitches so that it can be firm. These are normally found in militaries, uniform, police, and other things. So we put that one to aside. Then we do the edge stitches. The edge stitches. We pin it. We pin it. It's always the same basic. The basic is always have. Look at that. I've released my needle. So let's go back about 2 steps. I take out my pin. Always remember to take out your pin. It can easily break your needle. Look at that. I'm using my pressure foot here, the inside, to measure. I have no mark like and you can see very straight, half of an inch. If you cannot use for a beginner, but it's practice. When you practice, you become perfect like me. If you cannot use your pressure foot to gauge, always use your pencil to measure. So with edge stitch 2, we need to top stitch, which you know it's 6 of an inch. 6 of an inch. I've released. Then I put in my needle to hold my fabric. So a little, I go back, secure 2.5 for my stitches. I'm using the inside to control. You see? Always is very important. So, or else your thread can easily come out. So with the top stitches, it's quarter away from the, with the edge stitches, sorry, I'm doing edge stitches, it's quarter away from your top stitches. So look at that. If you can get a quarter with the fruits, you can use this one to measure the quarter. Use your ruler and pencil then as a guideline, but I'm using the outside, this time outside of the fruits to measure my quarter of an inch. So I go. So I have, this is edge. You can see when you turn it at the wrong side, you see 3 stitches, but if you turn it at the right side, you see only 2 stitches. And sometimes it's done with the, how do you call it, some are done with knitting. This was not knitted. They are normally found in jeans. You can find them in jeans and other things like that. This is also another strong stitches. I put that one to aside. The same thing, basically half of an inch. I'm using this is a welt seam. It's similar to the edge stitches, but there's a difference. Top stitch. You go back to square. You come in. I'm always using my, this is my inside foot to do my 8 inch stitches. I square it. I turn. This is quarter away. Look at that. You can see that quarter away from the seam. So you see, there's a wall seam. You see how it looks like. Some do it, some do knitting, but I have not knitted it. So that's how it looks like. Almost similar to, then we are doing French seam. French seam is opposite of the other seams. Normally is let me mark it, right side is opposite, right side to right side, like that, right to right. But with French seam, I need, on top I need quarter of an inch, and the one under I need half of an inch. I can use, look at that, I'm using my, once again, the side of my pressure foot to gauge my half half, then my 1/4 inch with this, the inside, to gauge it. So I release my needle inside. If you can see, the one inside is overlapping by 1/4, and on top of the fabric is 1/4 inch. So I'm going to sew this French seam. When I finished, I'll trim a little so that when I do the French seam, you don't have to see thread hanging at the other side of it. So I'm going to turn it like this. First of all, I iron it, then I turned. I iron and turned, then I make sure I sew 1/4 inch. I make sure the seam inside, everything go inside, so when I finish it doesn't show outside. Look at that. So I turn, you can see this is French seam. These are normally used on frayed fabrics, fabric that's frayed, like silk, lace. Look at it, you see. So assuming this is the right side, this is how your finished product will look like. Very neat, and normally used on ladies' blouses. If the material frays, you see how it looks like. So you are done with French seam. Now we are going to do what we call flat filled seams. Flat filled seam, the same procedure, 1/4 inch. The inside one I need half, so I use my pressure foot, and then on top of it I need 1/4. So I'm going to use my pressure foot to do my measurements. So you can see half down, 1/4 on top. Scale it. So I always cut, but always check when I pull my pressure vartic, it's always in line. With this is what you use your iron to turn here, this one, and then you iron the excess to hold like that. I always like to use my like that. This you can use it when you don't have knitting machine. You see, after you iron the 1/4 inch down like this, as a beginner, I advise you to use a pin to guide you, hold it down. This is similar to how do you call it, to the welt seam, but this is different. So you turn like that, you release, you make sure it holds your needle inside, and make sure that what you fold down, everything, you check everything is inside before you start sewing. So always 2.5. Take your time and do it nicely. You always check to see everything. See what I'm doing? Just to make sure everything is inside. So this is what's in. You can see. But this, when you turn it, you see 2 stitches. And then when you turn it on the right side, you see the seam and the stitches. The seam and the stitches. So that's the wall seam. Now we are going to do the downs too. We are doing the corner seam. The corner seam, this is where our pivoting comes inside. When you look at it, you can see I have placed stitches allowance. Normally it's half, but I have done it 1/4 of an inch because when it's too much, it doesn't lie down well. When you place it on it like it, it looks like it will not go. It looks like it's bigger, but no, it's because of the seam allowance. So we start like that. Look, you can see it looks like that, but it will go. When you, you see, it seems it looks bigger, but it's the other way around. So we start like that. You placed the same lines on each other. Then look at that. You release your needle. Maybe as a beginner you need to pin. So this is our point of pivoting here. When it gets to this point, that is why I've notched a little. When I've notched the fabric a little, notching is it's kind of direction you give to yourself by taking out a piece of the fabric. Here, I'll stop. So I'll go back to scale my stitches, then normal to my 2.5. So I'll stop. I raise my pressure bar. If you have the industrial machine, you use your knee. Look at what I'm doing. I'm going to notch the fabric down here. When I finish, I'll demonstrate. Okay, so look at it. You see what I've done? So that turning, I've notched it. Turning will be easier for me. You see? So I'll hold this one. Then I'll pull it. You see, because I've notched it, so it easily opens. Pull it like this. You see that it's matching. And I'll make sure that this is well relaxed, so I don't have any fold at the corner. Then I sew on my sewing allowance, which is 1/4 of an inch. You see, always make sure. So when I finish, you can see, look at my corner. You see, I notched. I will notch again. To make sure it's where, then it should be ironed. So that is how we make a corner stitch. Then we come to the curve stitch. My thread is finished. I'm changing thread. Curved seam. Look at it. It's curved. And I have my seam allowance. Once again, when you put it, it looks like this one will not fit into this one, but it's so because of the sewing allowance. And I have notched. You see, I've taken some part too much, and I have these tips here. That is my notching. If you are sewing a corner seam, you should make sure the notches are matching. If not, you have problem. But this is a bit difficult. When you are doing it, it looks like it will not match, but you should make sure this is my notch and another one here, they are matching. So I have to start on that point. You know, one is on bias and one is not. So, and you know, bias, they stretch, so they kind of pull. It will give problems that you have to try. I have to make sure you see, if my notches are matching, then it's a good finishing, because look at this one here and that one here, they are matching. So I'm going to get a good finishing. If you are not matching, forget it. You have problem. It will fight you a little, but remember, because of the curve and this one too, this is my notch here and there, they are all matching, so it's a good finish. If you are not matching, you won't get a good finishing. So we are done. You cut it and then you turn it. You see my curve seam. You need to iron it or notch. I'm notching it so it can well lie down. I use my thumb finger to do the ironing. I turn it. This is, you can see my curve. This is my curve seam. Look at it. You see. So that is for today. We end this video here on seams. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in my next video. Subscribe, share, and like. Stay blessed. Bye.